We're glad to have you back. This is Signature Morning on Signature Television, and this time around we'll be talking about the Igbo nation leadership, deepening void in the Igbo nation leadership. And we can talk about it without, bringing to you a very reliable guest, Dr. Emeka Nwosu, former political editor of Daily Times, and also former special advisor on media to the Senate President. Good morning, Doctor, and welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning.
How are you doing this morning?
I'm fine. I'm happy to be here.
When I see this red cap, it reminds me of Igbo.
Okay, you are a symbol.
Okay, could you, tell us how the Igbo leadership, has evolved from the pre-colonial days till now, and what lessons do you think we can learn from them?
Well, thank you for having me. Sincerely speaking, Igbo really has been a very democratic society compared to what we have in other regions of the country, where leadership is collectively put in place. And when the white people came, they talked about the sociologists talk about a cephalous society. Igbo will refer to as an acephalous society, as a society maybe without a truly defined leader, but that is not really correct, because Igbos believed in age. Amongst the Igbos, those who are in the elderly compartment are the ones that are given the opportunity to preside over the affairs of the society. So, over the years, the leadership has evolved. And it's a leadership by consensus. People are involved, even the younger ones. That's why we have what we call the Council of Elders. Unlike what obtains in other places, where I have, some of these societies, like in the north, talk about regimented societies where people are completely regimented. But in the Igbo society, we have evolved through consensus. So prior to the colonial intervention, we had these people who decided for us in the various communities. You understand? And truly, that represented democracy. We talk about democracy because people come together, to really say, okay, this is our leader by virtue of age. Then it does not stop other members of the society, younger elements, to even make contributions. So you contributed. So over the years, that has continued to bind us together up to the time colonialism intervened. And of course, remember the story of the warren chiefs, because there was no clearly defined leader. Then I tried to introduce the warren chief system, because they tried in the north, it succeeded. They tried in the west, partially succeeded, but in the east it was resisted because they were not used to, having an imposition. And that was why it was resisted. But that does not mean, like I said, we don't have truly defined leadership. Our own leadership is something that, people must, you have to get people's contributions, involvement, consensus. And that has guided it over the years. So after the intervention of the colonial masters, this things began to, gain roots. But following the reforms that were done in the 70s, of course, remember the Dasuki report and what have you, where you now started having the mushrooming of, leadership, traditional leadership in the southeast. We now start having exits here and there, multiplicity. But otherwise, some parts of Igbo societies, we have organized systems. You have in Onisha, you have in the Aro society, where you have the SRO, in places like Guguta, where I defined. But outside all these places, in other areas, people came together to identify leadership by age. And of course, it is believed that age symbolizes wisdom.
Okay.
So that what gave rise to the Igbo mantra that we usually hear? This explanation about the Igbos at the time not having a structured leadership. It was just a cluster of leaders in different parts. When the warren chiefs came in, they couldn't, identify any leadership structure, and it was difficult for them. Was that what gave rise to the Igbo? And how do you think that the war between 1967 and 1970 changed our structure of leadership?
Yeah, so sociologically speaking, people were tempted to talk about Igbo from the background I had given, because it's only in few places, like I said, where they had this defined leadership, where you have the, established kingdoms. But in other places, you don't have somebody, coming maybe by hereditary, imagine as a leader. People normally have to come together or had to come together in those days, to say this is our leader, maybe by virtue of age, which symbolizes wisdom. So I think that's part of it, because nobody emerged by virtue of consensus. So that was what gave rise to that. But as we progress, because in a modern society, when you're talking about, organized societies, so there must be somebody that must be responsible in terms of organizing the place, in terms of bringing development. So it's not something you have to lead to the critical mass. So I think that was why now, leadership now started evolving, But you can see what happened. Most places now, people now begin to contest for it, unlike in other places in the north where they had a centralized political system, arising from the centralized monarchies they had, which was absent in the Igbo area. But definitely, like you talk about what happened during the 66, 67 to 70, yeah. Then the military had taken over, and the way the military is organized in the hierarchical command, and we had somebody who was running the affairs of Eastern region then in the person of Colonel Emeka Nwosu. Of course, everybody had no choice but to key in, and he exercised leadership. The truth of the matter, he exercised leadership, even though that was an emergency period, and he even had to fall back to the Igbo mythology in terms of leadership, because that was what they call consultative assembly. So it was not even just he was a leader taking decision by himself. Even the decision to proclaim Biafra was not even taken by him. That was what they call consultative assembly, which had representatives drawn from all the provinces, then it was provinces, of Eastern region, that took decision and said, okay, this is our position. Of course, the leader then had to abide by that decision. So, like I said, the leadership has continued to evolve. But what we ask ourselves today, where are we? Absolutely. Continue to maintain that stand. Even before the military itself, let us get it right, because the golden era in Igbo leadership was during the prior to the First Republic, the post-colonial era, when you had the likes of Nanda Zikiwe and Dr. Emma Akpara and Akanibian. That was when Igbo was Igbo, and then you had the Igbo State Union then. So when they took a decision, it was, binding on everybody. So that was the golden era. People that could come and summon a meeting, everybody that was anybody in Igbo land would honor such invitation. And that was how we were able to come together to fight as a war, as a united people.
So what is happening now in the Igbo leadership structure? Well,
we have a problem. We must acknowledge that we have a problem. And that is what has, over the years, the efforts have been made, to see how we can have an acceptable leadership that, will really resonate with the people, with the aspirations of the people. So efforts have been made. And partisan politics, one of the things that created a problem for us, because most times when politics comes into issue of leadership, people tend to hold different positions and opinions. So this is the problem we have had. So if we're going to evolve a truly acceptable leadership, such leadership must devolve itself from partisanship of any nature. You understand? So that you'll be able to rally everybody around, irrespective of political affiliations. So I believe we are getting there. For instance, like the last leader we had, the whole of Igbo states, all the delegates from the Ohanese states came together and, gave Iwanyan the leadership. And as at the time Iwanyan was taking over the leadership of Ohanese, he had already withdrawn from politics. Do you understand? He has already retired from politics. So it was acceptable to people across divides, and was now ready to fight for the interests of the Igbo nation.
I'm just wondering where we actually lost it, because at the end of the Civil War in 1970, Gowon declared no victor vanquish, no vanquish, and of course proclaims the reconstruction, rehabilitation,
reconciliation.
Yeah, the 3 hours.
The 3 hours. And since then, you could see that there was a plan clearly to divide the eastern region. There were more states that were created to divide this. So, do you think that the state of the country at that time was looking to divide this eastern region, given that the unity that has formed over time because of what we faced in the war? And secondly, even up until this moment, do you think that move worked? Because somebody who is from River State, who is bearing Amechi, will tell you he's not Igbo. Somebody who is from Delta State, who is bearing Ifeanyi, will tell you he doesn't identify as an Igbo. Then you wonder really, are we is that move by the government of Gowon, did it work? Did it work, and to what extent?
Well, I think you have raised a very critical issue. The truth of the matter is that these are the consequences of the loss of the Civil War. Because prior to the war, the whole of Eastern region was strongly united. People who now try to distance themselves from Igbos, of course, were even claiming to be Igbos, you understand? Because Igbo then, that was their finest hour in Nigeria. People who are not Igbos, wanted to identify with Igbos. Once you are from southern Nigeria and you are living outside Igbo land, the tendency is to see you as an Igbo. And because of the exploits of the Igbo nation, all our contribution through the nationalist days, the exploits of Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe, and other nationalists, Bono Jiske, people like Dr. Emeka and co. So these were fine examples. To the extent that was, the influence of the Igbo nation extended beyond then we had our 4 regions. Don't forget, Eastern region was controlled by the Igbo. The Migosan region, Osadebe, was an Igbo man from Asaba. So it was the finest hour. And then suddenly the Civil War came. And of course, one of the strategies the then military administration led by Gowon employed, to divide Igbos was the creation of state. So when they did the state, they carefully, carved out the minority areas, from the dominant Igbo-speaking area, and then granted them state, more or less like granting them freedom. So those guys were now compelled, of course, to shift their loyalty to the powers at the center that have granted them autonomy, so to speak. And Igbos now are not pitching hold into what we may call the landlocked state. Because if you go into history, this is like River State. These are Igbo-speaking areas. When we talk about Igbos, we have dialects, dialectical groups. Do you understand? So when somebody from Ikwere says not Igbo, Ikwere is just only a dialect of Igbo language, just like even my own dialect in Omaya is a dialect of Igbo. Most times I even understand somebody from Anioma area, even they are Igbo, more than maybe somebody from Ohafia who is my state in Abia. So these are dialects, and Soka dialect, this and that. So, but we are all of the Igbo ethnic stock. So, but when you lose war, there are consequences. And so when they say they come up with the 3 hours, those things, were they really implemented? Because if they were implemented, we won't be shouting about marginalization, because all the infrastructure that were damaged during the war, none was ever repaired. And over the years, the consequences have been there. So the site is somehow deliberately have been economically depressed. And that's why today you see young people finish from school, there's nothing to engage them in the southeast. So the tendency for us now to begin to move out of our region. And the region are becoming uninhabitable because there's nothing economically to engage our people. So that is why now the issue of leadership, we really have to talk about it. Leadership is not only when you occupy positions in government. We need moral leaders. Leaders that have that moral capacity to compel, attention from our people, so that we can begin to talk about how to develop the Southeast. Because the destiny of Southeast is in our own hands. We can't begin to leave it to federal government, since they have not been able to do anything for us since after the Civil War.
What do you think about today's leadership, right from 1999 up until date? Some people still think that, look, today's leadership are even worse than the ones that we used to have. That if you look at the amount of monies in terms of monies and resources that's been thrown to the Southeast states, 5 states, trillions of dollars, there's nothing to commensurate with the development that we're seeing. So it's more like a continuous merry-go-round, like it or leave it. The person who led Enugu or Imo or Anambra wasn't Hausa man in 1999. Neither was it a Yoruba man that led in 2015. That has all been Igbos. So what has happened to today's stock of leadership?
Yeah, I think the problem we have in the South is that the leadership we have today is leadership that is driven purely by, what I'm even called primitive capital accumulation. People are not coming into power because they want to serve the best interests of our people. And again, most of these leadership that have been thrown up here, some of them are even externally instigated. And that is why most times they don't even have any commitment, you know, to the motherland. You see, most times people say they have lost faith in the electoral process because you go there, exercise their franchise. At the end of the day, what you come up with is not a reflection, you know, of the will of the people. So when somebody does not owe any allegiance to you, the way has emerged, you know, it does not owe any obligation, then the tendency is that he will continue to run his show in his own image, you see. So, but the problem we have is that those that are supposed to even keep them in check are our houses of assembly. Because if you go by the constitution, they are the ones that are supposed to keep these governors under check. But you find out that most of these members of the House of Assembly are even the products of the governor themselves, because they march through their, you know, the party platforms, and who are the people that control the party platforms? So it is these governors, these cabals. So they enthrone their people, and that's why most of them are hamstringed. They will not be in a position to act even in the best interest of our people. So we must begin now to hold this discussion to see how we can hold these our leaders, you know, accountable, and that's why we must emphasize the issue of an electoral process that is devoid of any kind of manipulation. So, and that can be achieved because if you go by the recommendations of the Mohammed Uwais committee, I think it was set up by Yaradua when Yaradua was alive, you know, when he said that the process that brought him into power was flawed. And they made fantastic recommendations. So if the country had implemented those recommendations, it would be difficult for any leader to now manipulate the electoral process, you know, that will now throw up leaders in their own image. So this is one area that everybody needs to work on. But as for the Igbo, as we are talking about, like I said, most of these leaders are foisted on us, whether we like it or not, they are foisted on us, you know. So the allegiance is to those authorities outside Igbo land that put them here. So no matter how you shout, you know, so unless we now begin to cultivate, you know, genuine patriotism, you know, on our part and then on the part of the leaders, they know that, look, even if we are foisted enough from our side, your primary allegiance is to the people of Eastern Nigeria. Now begin to use our resources to help our people. I have written countlessly, you know, talking about regional approach to development in Southeast. Southeast, we can come together, you know, to do it. That's what we call regional approach, regional integration. And that is what will serve the best interests of the Southeast. If all the 5 governors can come together, they vote certain percentage of their resources, you know, collectively, and begin to do things that can help us. For instance, now the issue of railway is no longer on the exclusive legislative list. So what that means that even states now can organize their own railway system. So what stops us, you know, from making the Southeast the Catalonia of Eastern Nigeria by building railways to connecting all the major economic centers in the Southeast. For instance, now you run a railway that can move from, because there's no railway lines around the Owerri Onitsha axis. The only one we have the Eastern Railway line that go from Port Harcourt, passing through the major cities of Igbo land, Aba, Omo, Enugu, and then up north. But what stops the governments in the South from running railway lines that can connect Aba to Owerri, Owerri through Ihiala to Nnewi, Onitsha, to Enugu, Abakaliki, all these major places, you can see the boom that will occur. It will involve a lot of resources. And we have a lot of Igbos in diaspora who can, you know, generate resources. And I think when you're working towards that, when he emerged as a leader, he set up a lot of committees to tap into resources of the Igbo diaspora. And that would have helped us. By the time we do this, this issue of drift of the youth from the Southeast to Lagos, to all these other places, where today we're no longer wanted, although trying to cross the Sahara Desert through the tempestuous, you know, Mediterranean Sea to go to Europe in search of golden fleece. Those things will stop if we develop this place. And Igbo land, we don't have large land mass, so it will be easier for us to even develop the South and make it livable. And the issue of insecurity will go down.
We talked about the morale, you know, having the leaders that have the heart of the people, or that have the mind of the people in heart, moral people coming out to lead. But I'm just wondering, you know, growing up, I used to, there's this stereotype, you know, as a child that used to tell us that Naira is structured to have meaning, never allow Igbo's rule again. I wanted to know, because growing up, I had this thing that, Igbos are not supposed to go far, Igbos are not supposed to talk, Igbos are not supposed to come up. Is it playing right now in the leadership structure of the Igbo land?
I think, sincerely speaking, I want to believe there are people who have sworn that Igbos will never rise to that position of leadership in their lifetime in Nigeria. Those are people who are playing God.
Why? Why is that like that?
Well, I think they see Igbos as a threat. Do you understand? Because God has given us that special gift of holding our ground anywhere we find ourselves. And if you look at the struggle for the independence of Nigeria, Igbos played more than a leading role. And that reminds me, because if you go through history, it's only in this part of the world that those who led the nationalist movement did not emerge to lead the country. Nandesgi was clearly the leader after the death of Herbert Macaulay. He was the one that championed the cause of the liberation of this country and equally influenced other leaders. People like Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, Jomo Kenyatta in Kenya, people like Mwalimu Mujilo Nyerere in Tanzania. They saw in Zik, the fire to liberate the nation, the continent. And those people, they emerged as leaders in their various countries. It was only in Nigeria that Zik that led the movement did not emerge. And of course, we talk about the conspiracy because the colonial masters have seen the Igbos as people maybe they'll not be able to manipulate. Because if you study the history of Nigeria, that's what they call the pacification of Nigeria. Igbos were the last people to be pacified. They resisted, colonial rule up to 1901, the Arrow expedition. That was the last place that was subdued. That was the last part of Nigeria that was subdued. So you can see historically that hatred, because we are the people that oppose them, that resist them. So it is clear that if you give leadership to this set of people, maybe their own interests will not be protected in Nigeria.
Do you think Igbo's leadership has gone into extinction right now? Because even the people in power, even the people that have been given that opportunity, you see this deepening void. Before you know it, they will tell you this one has died. If anyone we are having hope on, to deliver the Igbo land into glory, we begin to see that the person is gone.
It is an unfortunate development because I remember...
likes of Iwaya were just...
even before Iwaya, I remember Professor George Obiozo. All of us played a role in his emergence because we believe they had the credentials. Somebody who has served at the level of Nigeria's ambassador to the United States or served in the state of Israel. So we had if you look at the pedigree, and that was the kind of leader we were expecting who will be able to, somebody that will be respected beyond Igbo land, that can engage the North, the West in negotiations so that we can have a better deal for the Igbo nation. But somewhere along the line, I think Ihel set in and then the insecurity in the Southeast then compounded it. When his house was bombed, he lost all his priceless possessions. I think that even contributed to his demise. Now, Iwanya took over because this is on rotational basis. It is meant for Imo State for now. So after Imo, to go to the next state, which is going to be River State. So of course, Iwanya was the consensus of the leaders from Imo State, to finish the tenure of George Obiozo. But nobody knew that Iwanya was not going to complete the race. So it's unfortunate. I cannot say it's something that is a jinx or something that is deliberate, but we're all mortals, so you cannot determine what happened the next minute. But I believe with what Iwanya had done, the kind of parameters, as I said, whoever is coming in now should be able to build on it, and I believe the Igbo glory will soon return.
Right. There has been an emergence of younger people lately, especially as it relates to Nnamdi Kanu and his movements. Some people think and feel that the older generation have failed in leadership, and that's the reason why you see younger people coming up and trying to fill the void. And it's quite shocking that somebody would stay in his house and announce that there's a sit at home, and people believe the person rather than even the government. The government would scream and scream and scream, we are going to protect you, just come out and do your business. But on the day of the sit at home, these people just stay off the road. And then so you wonder whether the Eastern public is beginning to see political leadership or the older generation as people who are not to be listened to. But these younger people who are most likely using any form of, style, to engage the people. What do you make of that?
Yeah, like you said, I think the emergence of Nnamdi Kanu was as a result of some void in the leadership in the Southeast. There was a vacuum, you understand? Because most of like I said, most of these leaders are externally, fostered on us. So most of the times, they don't even come together. If you remember all the time, even in the recent past, most of the governors never even agreed together. Some of them never even sat together. I remember some seminars, we attended here in Enugu. Some governors, because of political differences, they never agreed eye to eye. So certainly there was a vacuum. And they emerged. Because if people refuse to talk about those things that will resonate with the youth, and then somebody comes up and begin to talk about them, definitely the youth now begin to see that person, as their true leader. I think that will happen. When a situation where you come here, youth who finish from school, there's no job, you understand? And nobody is making any serious effort in terms of how to solve, the problem of youth unemployment in the Southeast. Meanwhile, we're getting allocations, like you rarely observed before. And these things are being managed by people who are Igbos, not non-Igbos. So why can't you these resources, to put in place, certain projects, that will, make a lot of impact on the living conditions of people here. Instead, we find governors who are driven by other considerations. You now want to own mansions outside this place, and go outside the country to build all kinds of economic institutions. So clearly there was a void, and they took advantage of it. And you don't even blame them, because the issue of marginalization is very clear. It's very clear since after the Civil War. So whether it's in the police, whether it's in the army, there are certain levels you cannot even rise to. Take for instance, how many years did it take us to, reach the level of Chief of Army Staff? I was under Hedrick after so many years after the Civil War. Now you look at the way Nigeria is structured, we have only 5 states. And yet this is the most populous part of this country in terms of population density. So these are problems we have. And the federal government have used to even implement the trade as we talk about, because if they have done something in terms of rehabilitating the place after the Civil War, reviving all the industries and then all the infrastructure, that would have helped to slow down this movement of people visiting, the exodus of people moving to Lagos and other parts of the country. So, but the issue of, the youth now trying to take over the Southeast and gain all this scaremongering is something that should worry everybody. Because there's no way we're going to develop this place by killing our economy. Because this is self-inflicted. Yes, we know Nnamdi Kanu is there, is under incarceration, but these things can be handled diplomatically, and we'll still achieve the same results. Do you understand? Okay, now it's been held for a long time, and we keep destroying this place. Have we achieved anything? Somebody will sit down in Finland and give an instruction. What is being destroyed? It is properties in the Southeast. So the rest of the country, they don't feel it. Assuming that this thing is happening in other places, of course, the government will be forced to negotiate. But I'm sure what is happening fits into the agenda of, those who do not believe that's our issue there, raise their heads up again. So it is not for us, even our youth. That's what I'm talking about, having, a moral, suasive leader at the level of the organization, somebody figure that can be seen as a rallying point. The youth can believe in. Somebody that can call them to order and try to talk to them that this thing we're doing, we're destroying our land. Can you imagine today is Monday? I'm sure if you step out from here now, there will be no movement. And this thing continues. So, but with this opportunity, since they are saying they're doing this in the name of Nnamdi Kanu, if the federal government really wants to solve the problem of insecurity in the Southeast, then of course, they should, consider the release of Nnamdi Kanu. More so when the courts have even, given judgments in his favor. So that should have been the time, particularly on Buhari. But he didn't do it because we know his disposition toward the Southeast. I, for one, never knew that this one will link up to this moment under Tinubu. Because if you say you want to build a united and equitable Nigeria, there will be no reason why that guy should still be there. What did he do? It was like simple agitation. They did not carry weapons to demand for Biafra. as at the time he was incarcerated. And I'm sure if they had, engaged them when this whole agitation started, we wouldn't have gotten to where we are today. It's a question of, people trying to express, their views. And under the Constitution, you are protected, and they never carry any arms. So why are they still keeping him? Look at the Roman Igbo, they're asking for, Yoruba nation. The other day we saw them at the 10 Downing Street, where they made a presentation. So it's a peaceful agitation, and it's in their right to do so. And what people even fail to understand, that even the Nigerian constitution that was negotiated, there was a clause for secession.
Was there?
Yes, in the Nigerian constitution.
In the Nigerian constitution?
No. The 1960 constitution.
1960.
Yes,
Okay.
all the regions. So that if you don't even have the right, you understand?
But that's not what we are using now.
But it's not what we are using. What I'm trying to say is where we are coming from. It was the federalism we are running was negotiated. But today, we're no longer talking about federalism. That's not a unitary state. And you cannot run a unitary state in heterogeneous and diverse society like Nigeria. So federalism is meant for diverse regions. Places like Germany is a federal republic. United States is a federal republic. Switzerland is a federation that run in there. So let's find out that in the case of Switzerland, their own is rotational. I had the privilege of visiting one institute they call the Institute of Federalism in Freiburg, where people come to study the Swiss, example. And you can see it's a country that has been, steeped in peace, in concord, in unity. You can see the level of progress that has been achieved in those places. But here, you not change the whole system. And because it's favoring a particular section of the country, you don't want, all efforts have been made. Because Nigeria will serve the interest of everybody if Nigeria is working. Nobody wants to separate, nobody wants to, exit from Nigeria. But what do I say that make Nigeria equitable? Let's return to the foundations which were negotiated by our founding fathers. And that's the only way we can make progress. Any other thing will continue to run in circles.
I wanted to know, when we talk about Igbo leaders, we only see the men. Let's talk about the role Igbo women can play in leadership in Igbo land. What are the roles you think, and are there any space or any place for inclusivity of Igbo women in Igbo leadership right now?
Yeah, women are supposed to play a role, and that's why even in Igbo history, the history of Umuada, they play a major role in our history. Understand? So society is not like some societies in Africa where women are given a secondary consideration. In the Igbo society, both men and women are given opportunities to excel, to fly. I've not heard of a situation where our ladies or women are put down. I say maybe enjoy a symbolic issue like color presentation, where the women cannot maybe able to bless color and all that things like that. But beyond that, women have, shown leadership. Women have in the whole of Eastern region. You remember the lives of Margaret Ekbo from this part of the country. You remember the role the women played in 1929, the about women riot. Do you understand? Ones that even resisted taxation, and then this issue of the warrant chief system. Then they were the ones that protested. So Igbo women have always had that opportunity, to play a dominant role in our society. So maybe in our politics they have not really featured well since after the Civil War. But I believe that if our women are financially empowered, they should be able to make contributions. Even especially with the problem we are facing in the Southeast today. I'm sure if we talk to our children who are creating all these problems, they should be able to listen. Because they are mothers. You understand? So we need to sit our people down, especially the youth, because some of them didn't even know how this Biafra thing all started about. If you ask me, sincerely speaking, the Biafra thing is, we have done it in the past. You understand? But if it is the wish of the people, and then it's okay, you want to do a referendum. But under the Constitution, we don't have a referendum. So all we need to do is to negotiate equity. Nobody wants to leave the federation called Nigeria, but there must be equity. Both must be given their own due share. And that's the only way we can move forward. But if you are thinking that you can isolate Igbos, Nigeria cannot go anywhere without Igbos. That is simple truth. Because we're everywhere. Any day say Igbos are withdrawing from the Federation, Nigeria will collapse. So it is in the best interest of those who are on the face of Nigeria today to come to terms with this reality. That we need every segment of this country for us to move forward. If you feel that, by sidelining Igbos, you're going to make progress, it will never work. If you go into the diaspora, the Igbos are there all over the place making progress. So you can imagine if all people are not to put their talents together in Nigeria.
Let's talk about the role of Ohanese and Igbo. There are specific roles that Ohanese should be playing, given the positioning of the social-cultural organization. We know that there hasn't been any replacement yet for.
We're still mourning because the burial is coming up Friday this week. The next few days now, on the 1st of November, where the body will be interred. So yesterday in Enugu, on Saturday,
2 days ago,
2 days ago, we had the service of songs here and the day of tributes. So it was an opportunity for, leaders from the eastern part of the country, to pay their homage and pay their tribute, to a leader, that stood for Igbos, a leader that fought for our people. Don't forget that he was an engineer, a student engineer, University of Nigeria, so that break of the Civil War. He still had to, enlist in the army and fought to defend our fatherland, the Igbo nation. So that's just to show the demonstration of love and patriotism for our people. So he was there, and after the war, of course, we all got back into Nigeria, and the man used his talents, to build empires. Had engaged Nigerians, from all walks of life. In the media, of course, in the media we knew how he established the Champion newspapers and the National Post that were based in Owerri, covering the whole of the East. The Champion was national and engaged people at the height of the glory of Champion, people from all walks of life. I had people from Champion who became ministers, people like Labra Makuda, people like Professor Henshiko Maduike, were there, Ishiaku Jonathan, so many people. So you talk about Wanyamu National. He won a lot of glory for this country. Was there aviation? He made a difference with Oriental Airlines. In the area of construction and reconstruction after the Civil War, Hadala and Enik was all over the place, rebuilding all the infrastructure that were broken during the Civil War. And through Hadala and Enik, thousands of opportunities were given to our people to flourish. They had a foundation, the Royal Foundation, that given Campbell scholarships, awards to indigent students. We had the Wanyao ambulance, played critical role in the health sector, in terms of blood transfusion and what have you. We had the Wanyao Majil Industries. We had, it was in banking to ABC Merchant Bank. So, name it. In real estate, it was there. So, this was a man who towered above his contemporaries. And then he ventured into politics, and he made a success of his involvement in politics. Because I remember as a political editor then in Daily Times, I was closely associated with him. So when Babangida lifted a ban on partisan politics in 1989 and asked him to form associations, he with the likes of Adamu Chiroma, people like Omaru Shinkafi and others, they formed the National Congress. From National Congress, when Babangida was doing his banning and unbanning, from the NRC and the SDP, they went into the NRC. So he ran as a presidential candidate on 3 good occasions, but he never got the ticket. But that never deterred him. He continued to preach for equity, to preach that Nigeria was standing on a tripod, whether we like it or not. At the time of independence, Nigeria on a tripod. So, if the other leg is not standing, then Nigeria cannot sit to be balanced. So that's what he was preaching all his life. Up to the time now, he retired from partisan politics and then assumed the leadership of Ohanese. And within the period, just within 1 year plus, I was already reading a book authored by Alex Obonia, the National Police Secretary of Ohanese. You see what this man achieved within 1 year. It's unbelievable. People really need to read that document, the kind of vision he had. So I believe if he had stayed longer, that thing would have given our people a pride of place. Even the governors believed in his leadership. Because before, the problem was even the governors never believed in the leadership of Haneze. They never even made any effort to even support them. Even the emergence of Iwanyam, who's, a compelling figure. So no governor would even want to, treat him with any kind of disrespect. He commanded respect. And we saw that the man was not trying to rebuild Haneze. And look at when the properties of Igbos have been destroyed in Lagos. He led a delegation. He visited the governor of Lagos. He visited the Oba of Lagos. So that's leadership. So said, no, you can't continue to do this. We're still in a federation. So that's what he said. Even Nnamdi, his last outing was at the DSS facilities then in Abuja, to press for the release of Nnamdi Kanu. And all the time we're planning to visit Tinubu, who was outside the country, to make a case before he suddenly took ill and never recovered. So he has done well. So we expect that whoever is going to take over must be somebody of stature. Because if you really want to get Igbos, you have to be somebody of meaning. Because if you put up a beggarly figure, what you get is something that will not be, nice for everybody. So that is why in the leadership selection process, we must look out for people that have the capacity, even the means, so that when they talk, people will be able to listen. And from that, I think gradually we'll now begin to get it right. But sincerely speaking, Ohaneze has a role to play.
Right. That was the next question I was going to ask. You just touched on it a little bit. Who replaces him? What type of leadership should we be looking out for to, replace him and to give that particular institution some sort of bite? Because these days it does look like Ohaneze just releases a statement and it goes to bed. Nothing happens afterwards. How should the leadership of Ohaneze going forward be structured in such a way that when it speaks, Igbos follow and the government of the day listens?
Yeah. To start with, I don't know how many months are still remaining for Imo State, to complete the tenure. Because normally I think it's a 4-year tenure. We started with Obiozo. Obiozo just did, I think, less than 2 years before Iwanyam. So whoever is going to emerge from Imo may just have a few months in office, unless maybe they decide to extend it. Otherwise, the next leadership is supposed to be moving to River State, which is the Ikwere out of Rivers. So now I think it's going to be a major issue, because there are some sections of Ikwere that say they're not Igbo, you understand? But there are people who still believe that this is their roots. Because even the formation of Haneze was done by people from there. We had the likes of Chief Emmanuel Agoma, people like Mobidike Wonode, these are prominent Igbo people from River State. So Sisi Nwuche, the father of the former deputy speaker, all these are, Igbo people. So people from Ahoda, from Ikwere, from Eche, these are of Igbo stock. We can't run away from it. So, but we need to find that person, that has a stature, that can compel attention. So that's the way we can begin now to rebuild the Ohaneze. People that can be respected by the governors, and then have their own independent means of funding their activities. Because most times, when you rely on the governors, of course, the tendency is that they may decide to call the tunes. Do you understand? So they say, he who pays the piper, dictates the tune. So they must evolve independent means of funding their activities. So to that extent, they might be able to bring everybody on board, the governors to show interest in what we're doing, and know that whoever emerges, we are coming to champion the interests of Igbos, to have a better deal within the Federation of Nigeria. So that's what we're asking for.
All right, the burial will be this Friday.
This Friday.
What would you suggest as the best way for his burial that would be somewhat, commendable, that would be somewhat a farewell from the Igbo nation for someone who has sacrificed most of his life serving the Igbo nation?
Yeah, first and foremost, I think I must have to thank our people. The Igbos have demonstrated unusual solidarity since the demise of Iwanyam. People used to say the Igbos that we can't come together, but since his demise, it's been an outpouring of motion, solidarity, togetherness. I'm a member of the burial committee. I'm a member of the media subcommittee of this burial. So we've been involved. So the whole process started when Governor Hope Uzodinma, who is the chairman of the Southeast Governor Forum, constituted a committee. And then, of course, prominent Igbo leaders, were, involved in the constitution of this committee. The committee is led by Senator Ben Obi, a very highly respected cerebral Igbo leader, so that enjoys respect across party divides. And of course, Secretary General for Hanese, Ambassador Okemuche, the secretary of the burial committee. So they done quite well in terms of mobilizing people. So when the whole program was flagged off, Lagos was the first port of call, where they organized a day of tribute and the service of songs. It was something else, The entire elites, Igbo elites are resident in Lagos. Even the Afenifere and other groups were there. All the work catches from Lagos, through the above Lagos are fully represented. It was given a befitting farewell. Then from there we moved to Abuja. Abuja event took place on the 18th, 2 days after the event in Lagos, and it was at the National Ecumenical Center. So both past leaders from the Southeast here and people from other parts of the country. The former president, Goodluck Jonathan was there, physically present, and so many other leaders. And it was eulogies upon eulogies. So Igbos came out in their number with all kinds of cultural troops. So I can't remember in a long while where we had demonstrated that kind of unity. So it was there, the entire even Igbo structure, Hanese structure in the north were fully represented at the Abuja event. And of course, we moved around and mobilized, through the media. Then the Enugu event was the next, which was on the 26th, and which went very well, because this was why he was calling the shots as the President General for Hanese. So it was only obvious and fitting that he should be given that kind of recognition. So it was they took the body, the corpse to the Secretariat of Hanese here, where some tributes were paid to him before the main event at the Old Governor's Lodge that featured the governor of Enugu State, the former governor of Ebonyi State, Samiu, the wife of the late leader, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Prosucha Azikiwe, so many other countless Igbo leaders who were there to pay their respect. Of course, so many groups from the diaspora, the Omo other people, all of them came from, parts of Europe, America, and what have you. So it's been a wonderful thing. So the homeward stretch now, and there'll be an event on 29th, I think tomorrow is Tuesday, so there'll be a tribute session at the Cathedral of Anglican Cathedral. I understand he was one that even built it. So that's where the event is going to take place tomorrow. They call it Cato. So in Owerri. So to give opportunity now to people in Owerri, in Imo, neighboring Abia, to come and pay their last respect. So after that event, I think another significant thing will be because of his investment in soccer, in football, in sports. So there's going to be a novelty match at the Dan Anyam Stadium. That should be on Wednesday or so. Then the final team will now be in his village in Ata, in the Ikido local government area of Imo State. That's on the 1st of November. And they were secured assurances from many leaders. People like Obasanjo visited, all of them have expressed their desire to be in attendance to honor a man who was truly a Nigerian patriot, even though he served the best of his ability. So we expect it's going to be, a very wonderful farewell for a man that served his people very well.
Wow, what a day. I want to say a very big thank you, sir, for the insights on this topic. It has been a robust discussions, and
definitely
ending with the sad note of the demise of Iwanyahu, and the fact that everyone will be around to bid him farewell by the end of the week. Thank you for your work too, being in the subcommittee, championing this particular cause.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for your time, sir, this morning.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity given to me.
All right, that is Dr. Emeka Nwosu, the former political editor of Daily Times and former special advisor on media to the Senate President.